All right, welcome back. Brett here with ClickMill with Michael and Zach. And in this video, we're going to be talking about the emotional problem of evil. So the emotional problem of evil is what happens when someone experiences something traumatic. Someone dies, or they lose someone they love, or someone perpetrates violence against them. This can be exceptionally. This can be very true when they experience pain that's committed against them from within the church. Okay, so we've got evil happening and they are hurting, they're in pain, they're broken, and they are, whatever it is, angry at God, or they don't understand how God could let this happen to them. Now, that is a problem of evil. And this is not a problem of evil. The emotional problem of evil is not a problem of evil we're going to discuss from an intellectual framework. This is an emotional issue. This is a spiritual issue. And we need to essentially, when people are coming to us in pain and they're like, oh, God doesn't exist because this happened, it's like, wait, what we really need is healing. What we really need is empathy. What we really need is a listening ear to help them get through that. Because when people are in pain, when they're grieving, we're always going to go through the denial phase. And if you are familiar with the 5 phases of grief, it's something like denial, anger, bargaining. They're going to bargain. Oh God, okay, I'm still angry with you, but if you give them back, I'll come back to my faith, or whatever it is. And they're going to go through the phases of grief. It's okay for people to be angry with God in grief. And so in the emotional problem of evil, we're not coming at apologetics approach. We're not debating. We're not trying to prove an intellectual point. We just need to be there for them. And we need to meet them where they're at and help them to heal from pain. So that is the appropriate response to the problem, the emotional problem of evil. And the reason this is important, especially with people that lean more academic in nature, like myself, it can be really easy to try to give answers and solutions to problems, but or go to more of a debating or academic-y sort of gospel message presentation, but we miss this isn't that situation. What we really need is to offer them a prayer or to console them and to console them, to be there for them. So there are different approaches that share the love of Christ, and we want to make sure that we can discern and take the right approach. So in this one, it's more of an empathetic, emotional approach. We really don't need to be arguing anything. You guys have any thoughts or comments or experiences on that?
Um, I don't think I have a whole bunch of personal experience on that one outside of simply empathizing with people. I've never had experiences with people who will necessarily directly attribute
Mhm.
their lack of belief to something that is emotionally painful or tenuous. And I imagine that that's probably the case majority of the time. They might not have a full awareness of the fact that whatever the kind of pain point is has pushed them away from God, but it might have a more subtle contribution. So you might have to kind of ask some questions before you can get them around to the connection there between those two things.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's definitely, I think sometimes this emotional problem of evil can compound. So, for example, in my own life, when I was younger, there was a period of time where I experienced a lot of loss at the same time due to any number of reasons. And so I got very angry with God for, I don't know, 6 months or so. I was in the, you know, I'm an atheist because you don't exist phase. And that was the emotional problem of evil. I was grieving, I was in pain, and I was angry because I had to experience certain things, partly because of my fault, partly because it wasn't. And, either way, how could you let this happen? I'm going to go be an atheist. Okay, well, that's emotional. And when people heal, they come around. And that's kind of what happened. Now, largely for me, in part, I'm going through the apologetics like, all right, I'm going to be an atheist. Great. Where did the universe come from? If you haven't watched the atheism section, go watch that. I'm actually doing this in my mind. And this is what grounded me in my own faith because I was wanting to leave. I don't have a great idea of where the universe came from. I don't have a way for life to come into being. without God creating it. I could not answer these questions. And I'm like, well, fine. I guess I'll just be a Christian. And I don't like you very much right now, God. Like, I was kind of throwing a fit. And that's fine. God can handle my feelings, but those arguments grounded my faith. Well, so what happened? Well, as I start to heal, that emotional problem of evil starts to heal as well. And it's like, okay, it's a phase of life. There's some reason you've got me going through it. I don't really get it, but okay, we can move on. That's the emotional problem evil. Now, sometimes this can merge if I don't heal and I just build that anger over a long period of time. It's more like, um, sometimes, and atheists would not agree with this, but one way I have heard atheism, and this is my experience of atheism, is God doesn't exist and I hate him. Well, that's pretty much where I was. It's, you know what? I hate you. And so you don't exist. But one of the things that I was experiencing myself while I'm mad at God for allowing these bad things to happen is I'm talking to him every day, but I'm saying he doesn't exist. So it's like I'm contradicting my own thought life. It doesn't even make sense. And so when you get some people, some atheists, I'm not going to say all of them because I'm not all atheists, but at least in my case, if I had really just continued in the anger and hatred toward God, what would I do? I would have tried to create super complex arguments intellectually as to why he can't exist. And then you get into more intellectual arguments for the problem of evil or any other argument. So I'm just saying you can start with an emotional, but if you don't actually heal, you can start building intellectual arguments to protect that emotional wrong you're hanging on to. I think that that's probably a reasonable thing to think that people can do. So any thoughts on that before we end this video and move into the actual intellectual problem of evil?
Yeah, I have. Okay. Personally, I've never been in that phase of life where like I have tragic loss and I'm sitting somewhere and I'm questioning the whole existence of God. But I've seen close relatives who lost like members on a single accident. And, during the morning phase, one of the women was claiming like, where are you, God? Like, why do this to me? I mean, it's not yet 2 years, you took my kid. Why? I mean, what have I done wrong? I go to church, I read Bible. I mean, I don't do evil. And like, okay, the amount of evil, for instance, I do is less compared to others. You just singled me out and made my life. I mean, I've seen, and usually they end up doubting everything and they change churches.
Yep.
Like the woman in question, she started being a Catholic. She was originally a Protestant Catholic. Over time, she started drinking. Yeah, so it's something I've seen. And there's also a contrasting situation. I've seen a woman who, because of the economic problem they were going through with the husband, one day the husband woke up and decided to put the house on flames. And she kind of survived by a whisker, but she was burned. Like her face looks, she's somehow scary to look at her. But she decided to be a pastor.
Wow.
I mean, she usually says that that's the epiphany. That's when she realized God is there. I mean, you see the two contrasts.
Yes.
And like she tells people like, hey, me, I've seen it all, and it didn't push away.
Yes.
Yeah, it did push me away from God. In fact, it brought me close. And I don't know how to make of those two contrasting situations. Whether someone else is really built for faith and someone else,
and I think
to be brittle. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing. And again, I think, and this is the same thing you see anywhere. Like you can have two twin sons that grow up with an alcoholic father. One of them becomes an alcoholic and says, I'm an alcoholic because my dad was. And the other one never has a drink in his life. And he goes, I don't drink because my dad drank so much.
Yeah.
What does that tell you? It tells you you got a choice on the direction you want to go, right? And yeah, so what do we do when we're faced with these emotional problems of evil? I didn't need someone to give me an argument for what. I don't care about your arguments. I'm mad, man. What I would really like is for someone to sit with me in the hardship and say, that sounds like that's a really hard situation. I'm here for you. That's how you heal. That's how you get past the stuff. So that's the emotional problem of evil. And so when we approach the emotional problem of evil, it's more from a relational, empathetic, let's just be with them in the hard moment and tell them it's okay to be there because we all have them to whatever degree. So in the next video, we're going to get into the intellectual problem of evil and how to sort of start understanding it and then disarming and disengaging that attack against the faith. So we'll see you there. God bless.